Let's wait for our viewers to join, shall we? Um, Today we're going to be playing Valorant, classic game. Hello, 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 hello. And how are we doing today, guys? We're doing good? Okay. Great, 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 great. Like I said, we're going to be playing Valorant today. Let's see. Where's Valorant? Let's find Val. Oh, hi, Vibrator. Hi, Vibrator. How are you doing? Why are you going on Valorant? Oh. Oh, right, 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 right. I forgot. Today I was gonna give you guys my presentation. I totally forgot. My bad, my bad. Here, let me switch. Okay. Oh yeah, here we go. Here it is. Alright, well, I forgot that today I was going to be streaming my presentation. I'm not actually gonna be streaming Valorant. So here we go. Right, welcome to the stream. Yeah, I do have a project due, so thank you for joining us today, Vibrator. um, Today we're going to be talking about the evolution of communication and its effects on information throughout our history. So here's the agenda. We're going to be talking about what is communication and what is the reason for it, the timeline and how has communication evolved over the course of time, what does communication look like nowadays? How are people communicating? And what does the future of communication look like? What are scientists and people predicting in terms of new communication? So, yeah, what is communication and how do we communicate? So, communication as we know it today has advanced way beyond what it started out as. Today we have phones, computers, and the internet to communicate with each other, but in the past we had to communicate face to face. Communication in the simplest terms is when one entity sends another entity a message to convey information, whether it's through words, expressions, or emotions. So over here we see people talking to each other, we see a baby crying, or we see a little sad face over here, you know. Usually babies will cry since they can't communicate with their words, like these people up here. They'll communicate with their feelings or through expressions like crying and stuff like that. And oh, you want to know if communication's only done with humans? No, actually, I was going to talk about that. Communication is everywhere. Now, don't get me wrong, communication is not just a human thing. It's everywhere around us. Animals communicate to each other on a daily basis. Non-living street signs tell us what to do and what not to do. And dogs will bark at their owners when there's an invader coming in. So down here I have a few different types of scenarios. Some I just talked about up here, but ravens will use their own sign language to communicate to other ravens through their beaks and claws as well as wings. Dogs will bark, usually alerting their owner of dangers, or even trained dogs that can sniff out different different substances. They will bark and let their owners know if they smell the substance. Street signs, non-living, but still can communicate with us. They don't talk, they don't say anything, but they do inform us what to do in various situations. Computers. So computers can talk to each other. They'll ping signals back and forth and talk in um, code language and we don't understand it, but computers will understand it. That's how most of the communication is done nowadays. So moving on, what makes communication possible? So without information, there would be no communication whatsoever. So imagine a world where there's no information at all. You can't. You can't really because information is all around us. We open our eyes and our brain is intaking information. We talk to our friend, we get information from them. It's everywhere around us. So this is the cycle here. We get new information, we create new methods of communication. Then we get new information and we create new methods of communication, and it just keeps going in a cycle, a cycle, a cycle, a cycle. So say the first person had a story they wanted to tell, right? And so they told their friend, but then they had more information that came in that allowed them to communicate through a book. And then this book became a Wikipedia page, and this Wikipedia page became something else, and then something else became something else. It's a never ending cycle of communication, basically. And since communication and information are such an integral part of the society, it just keeps improving and improving since we as a society are improving as well. We're stuck in the ever improving cycle of new information and creating new different methods of communicating it, basically. So what do I think the top sources of information are? Um, I think arguably the brain is number one, books is number two, and the third one I'd say would have to be the internet. But thank you for asking because I'm actually going to be talking about that next. Or not next, soon, later on in the presentation. But now we're going to be talking about the communication timeline. So has communication improved over the years and what are some examples of those improvements? So in 1832 we had telegraphs. So everybody knows who Alexander Graham Bell is, and he came up with the telegraph, and this developed into telephone, and the telephones then developed into the smartphone we have today. But we had other things such as the Pony Express, which I'll get into these things later, but we developed into telephone, radio broadcast, live TV, emails, the web, text messages, Wikipedia, Facebook and Google, YouTube to the iPhone. So here's a visualization of it. You can really see how things started off very archaic almost, and now they're very modernized and yeah. Um, Next, so communication today, what is it and how are we communicating with people? So like I said, oh, I didn't say this, but the most three popular forms of communication today are text, social media, and video chatting. So as the rise of phone usage increases, text, social media, and chats as a form of communication also increase as well. Since the phone is always at the tip of our fingers, it's so easy to access all these different forms of communication. You no longer need to wait for a face-to-face communication, and you can just pull out your phone and talk to anyone and whoever at any time you want, really. And I'm sorry, vibrator, I didn't see your question. I think you asked, is it the end of it? Oh, I accidentally skipped the slide, so let me go back. But no, this is not the end of it. Communication today is still improving at rates that are really unknown to us, but I will be talking about what we expect to see in the future later on in the slides. I think I accidentally skipped this slide, but earlier you asked what are the three biggest forms of communication. I think um, the brain, or not communication, of information. I think the brain, books, and the internet are, I think, the three staple information systems that we have today. The brain would be the first one, are obviously, and it's arguably the greatest source of information, since all information really comes from human beings and not human beings, but the way we interpret them. I think the brain is the first step in receiving that information, so it is one of the best ways to store information. From the moment we open our eyes and even during our sleeps, our brain is constantly taking in information. But since our brains can have a limit, we've created books. So, communication developed, so did the need to communicate to people across the world, people in the present day, and even people in the future. Books were made to hold information, and books are physical copies that can last forever, while brains can deteriorate when we die. So, I think a combination of the brain and books makes up for the internet. So, the internet, as we know today, can hold an infinite amount of information, basically, and it does. You can go on Google and search up anything you really want. So, yes. Moving on, communication today. How are we communicating today? I think I talked about this one yet. So, next, example of how communication has changed because of COVID. So, before COVID hit us, everybody was out and about. People went to their offices to get work done, and people went to classes to do some learning. Meetings were all face to face, like in the past, and learning was all done in a big lecture hall, kind of almost. So after COVID, our society has shifted, and as a response, we've developed very interesting ways of communicating with each other. We no longer need to go into the office and into classrooms and be physically present. We can just communicate and connect with each other with the click of a button through Zoom. Another question from Vibrator. How has COVID affected your college experience? Actually, that's a great question. So, in my freshman year, during the end of the year is when COVID hit us, and we were all sent home, and we didn't know what to expect really. We thought it was just going to be a fad for like a week or two, but then we realized it wasn't a fad, and then as a result, I lost my whole entire sophomore year, and I stayed home for that year. So all classes were online. Didn't see any of my professors in person, any of my classmates. So that was an interesting experience. But I think we've started to recover, and I'd say my senior year has been a pretty good mix. I wouldn't complain. I think I've been to classes enough and had that real life experience of communicating face to face. So, yeah. Okay, so the future of communication. What does the future look like? So, the number one theory for the future of communication is really augmented reality and wearable technology. So recent polls have predicted that the most popular ways of communicating in the future will be wearable technology, augmented reality, and smartwatches, for example. So over here we have like a while ago they came out with Google Glasses that never really became a thing, but the idea of it is what we're going to be talking about today. Here's like a Fitbit kind of almost, Apple Watches, but yeah. Do you own any yourself? No, I don't actually, Vibrator, but thank you for asking that question. I would, I don't know, something about wearing technology to me seems it's too advanced for me. I am okay with the phone. But anyways, augmented reality today. So what is AR and what can it do today? So basically it's still AR is still considered to be in its research and design phase. Although that being the case though, there are various industries who take advantage of AR. So one example is the gaming community. There's a lot of AR games out there. You put on an AR headset, you have your little remote control and stuff like that, and you could be climbing Mount Everest while you're in your living room or something like that. Retail. Retail. There are mirrors that can basically change your clothes as you step in front of it. Um, but that's still being developed now as well. And I guess military as well. I'm not too sure what the military does with AR, and I don't think I want to know either. So let's move on. Potential for augmented reality. In the future, AR holds endless possibilities. As technologies advance, there will be a point where you can put on a pair of glasses and you can be in a whole different city talking to people who aren't even in your living room. So this is kind of a picture of it. But yeah, healthcare is starting to use it. I know that uh, there's technology. It's the game. I forget where you where you have to get the little bones out without trying to make a noise. They're making games like that nowadays, or not games. They're making programs like that nowadays so that surgeons can practice or perform surgeries on people without actually risking their lives. So they would take a scan of the actual situation, upload it to the AR reality, and then be able to practice or do the surgery in the AR world without actually having to perform the procedure on the actual patient. Um, Retail, I don't know why that's there again, but let's skip it. And then anything and everything, really. AR could be put into anything. There are companies and businesses who are starting to develop AR uh, technology to scan their supply chains. Um, Taking a picture, a snapshot of the facility, and seeing, oh, there's 80% of the materials that we need at this place, 20% here, and we can see how fast it's moving from one place to the other. Basically, improving all aspects of communication. Wearable technology. So these are the things like Google Glasses, smartwatches, and body monitors, like the Fitbit. Uh, the technology it has an exponential curve for advancements, and the idea of the technology is, or the technology itself is still catching up to the idea of what's possible. So similar to AR, the idea of it is there's endless possibilities, but the technology is still in its research and design phase. But so the potential for the wearable technology like AR has unlimited potential. They're often fear and reserved to improving technologies that are so closely related to our human biology. So when does that separation really stop? So see, we have a data or a chip, and the idea of chips being inserted to the human body has been a very prevalent idea as technology continues to advance. Um, in replacement for, let's say, an ID to get you through this airport security, you could scan your chip that's located in your arm. You'd never lose it, right? But but like I said, when is that separation between technology and our human bodies? Where do we draw that line? So yeah. Anyways, the end. Thank you, Vibrator, for being my one and only. Um, oh, another question. Oh, thank you. Well, thank you again for being my one and only viewer, and asking me questions today. Let's see, you have another question. Would you consider streaming platforms like Twitch a form of communication? Were you even listening, Vibrator? Yes, of course I would. Cause what are we doing right now? I'm streaming, I'm live broadcasting to you, which it's a very different form of communication that I didn't speak about, so I don't blame you. But yeah, I'm broadcasting to you and you're asking me questions, so we're doing a little back and forth, pinging information against each other or towards each other. Anyways, thank you for joining the stream. I'm going to be playing Valorant now. Peace out.